America's Gerry Beckley explains how all of their earlier albums had an H title, like every single title started with an H. I'm John Bowden from Rock History Music. This is part 2 of a 6-parter of our exclusive chat with Gerry Beckley of America. They released 20 albums if you don't count their greatest hits packages or live packages, then it goes up to 30 and 40 albums. The group's debut was self-titled, but then came the H titles like Homecoming, Hat Trick, Holiday, Hearts, History, Hideaway, Harbor, and one last nod to the letter H, Silent Letter, in 1979. I asked Gerry Beckley why.
Well, it started by accident, and then once we realized that we kind of had 3 records. The first one was just called America, but then after the success of Horse with No Name, they started to reprint it with saying includes Horse with No Name. So the second one was titled just because we returned to the States, but and then made the album. It was called Homecoming. And then the third one, Hat Trick, because of the term for 3. Then we had 3 H titles, and it was the start of the 4th album that we made the conscious effort. Geez, we got 3 H's, maybe we ought to. So it was only a fluke to be, and then after a while we just thought, well, let's try this as a way of having continuity. You know, our friends in the group Chicago were just, they just numbered theirs, and we thought that was kind of neat, you know, and but it made a continuity from album to album, and so that was kind of our way of doing it.
The band did have more album titles starting with H later on in their career as well. There was Hourglass, the live album Horse with No Name, Human Nature, Highway, and Holiday Harmony. In the 70s, America, like most bands, were releasing an album about every single year. And they were going at breakneck speed. I mean, to make it, you have to work your butt off. Back then, there were 3 members in the band: Dewey, Bunnell, Gerry Beckley, and Dan Peek. Dan left in 1977, and now it's just Dewey and Gerry touring as America. I asked Gerry Beckley, what was it like going at that speed in the 70s?
The first year with the success that we had, it was actually by kind of the second year because we started in 70. But the time frame at that time in history, and it changes depending on which decade you look at it, but in the 70s, acts were kind of expected to do an album a year. I mean, if you speak to the Beatles, they were doing 3 a year. You know, and now it's more like 1 every 2 years or 3 years. You know, I mean, it has adjusted. But in our case, 1 a year was plenty. We were fortunate that the identity of the band revolved around initially these 3 identities, and we had batted the writing from guy to guy, so that it wasn't all on one guy's shoulder to come up with 12 more hits, you know. We each had to contribute a few. But having said that, it was a very hectic decade. I'll put the lid on, you know, probably the first 10 years was pretty ridiculous because, you know, you were supposed to do the album, which means write it beforehand, record it, and then you're supposed to be out on the road in every other available minute. So if you assume that people have somewhat of a life, you know, in Dewey's case, he was married right at the start. It's a real challenge to get all of that stuff, you know, happening and flowing together.
We'll have more of our conversation with Gerry Beckley coming up next week. Go to VenturaHighway.com for more information on that band. They're currently touring, as a matter of fact. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. We'd appreciate that. Check out our older ones. We've been doing this stuff for quite a few years now, and we like to cover the history of rock and roll for you. And we always like to be fair and accurate. It's important to us. So comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. I'm John Bowden from Rock History Music.